Abiola Awosika faculty. She's a professor of finance and economics from the United States of America. Thank you for coming on this morning.
Thank you very much for having me.
Well, it's interesting what we see going on now because, if we look at it against the backdrop of the kinds of protests we've had, the frustrations that people have expressed over time, and now this, people just sit back and ask themselves, how did this just happen all this while? And everyone seemed to have glossed over it. When you saw it, what came to your mind?
I thought, great. Finally, something is happening in Nigeria. People are not just saying, okay, God is going to judge all these people who are doing these things to us. People are actually acting and letting their voices be heard. And I think it's a good thing because now we can reevaluate. We can assess what went wrong and how can we plug the loopholes that's in our system.
But if you see, we were just even looking through it now, but we do have a report about it, just kind of put together what went down. So we'll just take that report to give a perspective or background for those who might have missed it, and we'll take it from there.
The whole truth?
Nothing but the truth.
And nothing but the truth.
So help you God.
So help me God.
First to take the hot seat on the third day of the probe on subsidy removal was the Executive Secretary, PPPRA, Mr. Reginald Stanley. And one major issue he was made to explain was the volume of the PMS discharges between January 2011 and October 2011, which showed some discrepancies in the figures he gave and that given by the Minister of Petroleum.
So on page 5 of your presentation, I think for 2011, January to October, you said 58.9 million barrels per day. But the figures we got from the minister yesterday were 35 million barrels per day. So how come by this huge discrepancy between 35 and these are the figures that have been going out there?
Discharges, as witnessed by inspectors, it's what you discharge into the tank. It might not be trucked out. But what is trucked out is what is consumed. I think that the discussion we've had, if I understood it that way, is what is actually the consumption. So what we have here are the discharges. That's what came into the tank, what left the ships into tanks, as against what physically actually was consumed.
Perhaps not satisfied with this explanation, the chairman of the committee sought to know if the agency paid subsidy on discharge figures or actual consumption figures for 2011.
So up to the time I came to the agency, which is just about 5 weeks ago, what I met on ground was on discharge figures. But I have introduced a system whereby it has to be based on your truck out.
If you pay, or the practice is to pay subsidy on the discharge, and take 2011, the per day discharge is 59 million liters per day. What that means is that the gap of 14 million barrels per day is paid for by Nigerians as subsidy, but which is not utilized in Nigeria. Then it means someone somehow is being shortchanged, and that's of course the ordinary Nigerian.
Next was the GMD NNPC, who had this to say about the country's refineries.
Mr. President ordered management of NNPC and the Ministry of Petroleum Resources to revamp and rehabilitate the refinery within 24 months. The refineries, as we have said, currently runs at the capacity of about 60%, but not on sustainable manner. The first refinery that we are going to do turnaround maintenance on is Port Harcourt Refinery. And this activity will take place between September and December this year.
But even when the refineries are fully operational, he warned that there was still another challenge: vandalism.
The full benefit of this exercise will not be realized if the rate of vandalism that we are having on the pipeline is not addressed.
Hearing continues on Thursday. Chimezie Obi-Iwagu for Channels Television News.
Well, a little correction there. The head of that committee eventually did correct himself, saying it's about 24 million litres of fuel per day. I know you hate to think about that. But some other matters that popped up here, which perhaps might have been glossed over, is what the NNPC GMD talks about, pipeline vandalism. He says, well, even if that is fixed, I mean the refineries, that is a challenge that we need to address. How can we begin to address that? How would you suggest that?
Well, first of all, it's just as he said, it is very important because it has implications for so many things, even national security. Okay. And so if we don't fix it, we're sitting on a time bomb. There are different ways we can fix it. Technology is one way to do it. One thing that I've noticed is we do not have systems management in this country. Systems that will take us from the beginning of a process to the end of the process, such that we will not have as many discrepancies as we're having now. So if we put systems in place and we use technology, actually that would give us double benefit, because now there will be opportunities for jobs in the high technology area, security areas, communication. There are rigs that can be put in place 45 meters below, underwater, that folks cannot get access to the pipelines. Not only that, we can put sensors on the pipelines such that all you have to do is knock or scratch and it sends a message somewhere. And if we can deploy people immediately, we might still find them there and bring these people to account. So it's not something that's peculiar to Nigeria. It happens in other parts of the world where there are pipelines. Mexico, Venezuela, Colombia.
So they seem to have developed that technology to curb it.
Well, these countries, are working on that, but the ones that have developed the technology are actually Canada and the United States. So they have pipeline vandalism also. And this, actually the U.S. government puts this under the Department of Transportation. So because pipeline is transportation. And so they have oversight of it. I think they have about 800,000 meters of oil pipelines, so they have to worry about vandalism. And some of this technology has been put in place, and it's worked for them.
That shows how, okay.
How expensive, do you think we can actually afford to have all that money, go into that sector? Who's going to pay for it? How do you think it can be managed, as it were?
Well, from the probe yesterday, we had a list of the states where the pipelines are still working, and some of the states where vandalism is rampant and they're actually holding the whole nation to ransom. Well, we make those states responsible. Remember the security vote that everyone's been talking about and nobody seems to know what they do with it? Well, this is the opportunity for them to use the security vote. Not only that, this subsidy removal is supposed to generate some money, and we're going to distribute this money, state by state. So they need to make sure that the pipeline is working in their state, so that they're not holding the whole country to ransom. So we can afford it. In fact, we cannot afford not to do something about it, because if we don't, then the fuel subsidy removal is a waste. We're not going to reap the level of benefits from it that was anticipated.
No, from the probe, a whole lot of revelations and, leading up to comments from all quarters. And as a professor of economics and finance, and you can rarely see that the books that we've been going through, even though we've not actually seen the end of that particular probe, well, there are loads and loads of conflicting figures, conflicting books, all opened from that particular sector of our national life, the oil sector. What do you think must have gone wrong when it comes to books like this, that you get to see different figures? Is it something that is totally difficult for someone to really account for when it comes to petroleum products?
It's not impossible to get everybody on the same page in the same book. However, it's not also unheard of that different agencies would have different figures. It depends on how you calculate it. So, but if we can bring people to the same page and say these are the methods that you will use to calculate what's coming in and what's going out, so that we can all be on the same page, then it can easily be. That's accounting. It's simple. Now, I say it's simple because that's theoretical, but in reality, it's going to cost us. We have to put systems in place such that, and I'm thinking technology, computerize this whole system so that PPPRA can log into a system and find out what's going on. The finance minister can log into the same system. The petroleum minister can log into the same system, and we're working off of the same numbers, and such that and it's not going to be totally foolproof, but it can be done.
Do you think we're ripe enough for technology?
Why not? Why not? My experience, some of the best brains overseas are Nigerians in technology. I mean, genius level. I know some of them, and if we can do it, we're ripe enough for it. It's a great opportunity for jobs, great opportunity for education, great opportunity for bringing our best brains back. Absolutely. Nigerians are very intelligent.
In terms of the environment, that's what I meant to,
what do you mean?
The environment, the fact that we don't have stable power supply, some of the pipelines, they might not even remember the routes they took them through. There could be a host of issues when it comes to applying technology in an environment such as ours.
Well,
you don't see any?
Well, I know we're unique. We have our own ways of doing things. I've learned that in the last few years that I've actually been entrenched in this economy. But what I know is Nigerians are very resilient, they're very creative, and they're bright, and we can sensitize them to these technologies. It's not rocket science. It's sitting at a computer, writing a program that's going to help, hands off, help us monitor, what's going on.
The policy of the government has actually opened a can of worms, and people really can't but ask questions again. Remember yesterday, the PPPRA's boss disclosure that the country was importing 59 million liters per day, and that revelation shows that the country was importing more oil than it needed on a daily basis. So the excess, for instance, I think about 24 million?
Yeah, 24 million.
24 million. Should we now be asking where that is going?
Oh, absolutely.
Because some have been saying that, that's why the subsidy matter has actually been abused, and that if we try to plug all of those loopholes, do you think that will bring about some kind of enjoyment to the people all of a sudden again?
Absolutely. When I was watching the probe yesterday, I was heartbroken on a lot of issues, but the one that really got me was the leakages that we have all through the system. These are funds that could be used to better the lives of the Nigerian people, and a handful of people, and I don't want to say Nigerians, because there are foreigners who are also involved in what's going on here. There was a news that I saw of as it 5 or 7 Chinese vandalizing our pipelines. I mean, it's a long way from China, but leakages are rampant, and we need to plug them, and we need to hold people accountable. They need to explain to us what happened to 24 million liters of petrol. So and there has to be consequences. When there are no consequences, then people just do whatever they want. So even if we find these people, then what happens to them? So we need to hold people accountable. We need to find all that money. Unfortunately, the poor Nigerian is not going to be the one we're going to find doing. Bunkering is not a poor man's business. I mean, tankers, barges.
It takes a lot to do that.
It takes a lot to do that. And so I'm sure we know where to look.
Sadly, he bears the brunt of this whole policy. But again, do you think the policy is something that over time will benefit this poor Nigerian?
It's fraught with a lot of ifs. So I'll predicate my statement with that. If the government does what it's supposed to do, it should benefit the average Nigerian on the street. This is why. We talk about upstream, we talk about downstream. There is a middle where production happens. Mm-hmm. That is the refining. Now that is where value is added in any process, whether it's you're manufacturing toothpicks or you're manufacturing carpet. Value happens when you bring labor with overheads, with technology, with raw materials, and you process it, and it becomes something else that meets somebody's needs. So what we're seeing right now is we're not enjoying the multiplier effect that's supposed to happen in that middle, the production sector. And economics teaches that for every manufacturing job that you generate, you're generating at least three additional jobs. There's going to be the supply side, somebody who's going to bring the raw materials in. Then there's also the distribution side. When it's all done, then we move it to market. And then all of the auxiliary services like the lawyer, the insurance company, the accounting companies, now these, we group them all into one job. So when you create one manufacturing job or one refinery job, you're creating 3 additional jobs. So when you put people in buses, you have maybe the driver and the conductor. You created 2 jobs, and so some of the palliatives and some of the job creation, are they sustainable? But with manufacturing, those jobs are sustainable. Because if the demand is there and you're constantly adding more manufacturing positions, you're inevitably enjoying. But when we take production outside, the multiplier effect happens.
Now you just talked about all of that, because the government is still looking very much towards solving all of this, and they are also open to solutions and suggestions. And the buses, away from the buses, we're not too keen on having 2 jobs now. I think the manufacturing aspect of it is quite novel, that you have more people getting jobs. And if the government is saying that they intend to create more jobs for the people, and you saying that when we go into manufacturing we're likely to get more than 3, 4, 5 jobs, how can they come into all of this very quickly, the way they just gone with the buses? Is it something that is achievable in a short term?
Oh, absolutely. We have to enable our small businesses and small and medium enterprises. And that is where we need to go. I mean, take a look at the banks. How many people do they employ? Even the government, compared to the masses, how much of our daily needs do they actually supply? So manufacturing has to go back to the people. Private enterprise is what we need to focus on. And we have an environment that does not enable private enterprise. The banks are not funding small and medium enterprises. They, I watch the business news, and I notice that the performing stocks are mostly banks. What are they selling? What are they making? They should come in after the manufacturing sector has grown. The manufacturing sector is what should be driving the financial sector, not it's the
stock should
tail.
be topmost.
Absolutely. So the tail is wagging the dog here, and we need to get to a point where the dog is in control.